Always here to help with Stephen Conry. I mean, he's just here to help, all right? You know, to his soul. It's on his business card. And, of course, the carryover champ, as always, on a Wednesday night is none other than Bronwyn Bishop. So, Bronwyn, can you help me out here? Next 24 hours, interest rates are going to fall in the United States. Why do they fall there, but we're not going to have anything until maybe the middle of next year?
Well, a couple of reasons. We didn't put ours up as high as they did, and we did it over a lengthier time. But also, you have to realise that our mortgage situation is different. We don't count mortgage repayments in the CPI.
Right.
But we do count rent. But most of our people here are on variable interest rates. And the people who are on fixed interest rates, it's only for a short term, then they get to go onto variable rates. So there is always a versus America where they're on long-term fixed rates. So it really does make a difference to how it impacts on 1/3 of the population, and that also impinges on the renters because the cost of housing and mortgages that is then rented out feeds into that as well.
Stephen, is it also fair to say their inflation rate is lower and their growth rate is higher than we are? So why is America about to see half a point come off, but we're being told if that happens, there'll be a recession? Why wouldn't there be one in America?
Look, it is mindless. I mean, I'm actually in shock that she could make such a ridiculous statement. The only thing currently stopping the country being in recession is government spending into the economy. That is stopping
isn't that
it being
a
in recession.
disgraceful statement?
Interest rates, well, it's just an economic fact. I thought we talked about this last week. C plus I plus G, G equals government. It's actually part of GDP. But to the core point, you know, Michelle Bullock told us, 12 months ago, the problem was a wage price spiral. It didn't exist. Then it was, we're having too many haircuts and the price of a haircut's going up, which is, just so absurd, it's embarrassing. And now she's trying to say if we lowered interest rates, it would cause a recession. I mean, fair income. They cannot keep their line straight from week to week because at its core, the problem the Reserve Bank has is its model that it has built is wrong. No, I've been arguing this, Bronwyn. Paul will tell you. I've been saying the Reserve Bank got it wrong last year. They went too late. They put them up too far, and now they won't lower them. And they've driven the economy to the verge of a recession.
He has been on about the Reserve Bank for almost as long as I've been on about too little, too late tax cuts.
Yeah, but I mean, Stephen's actually more aggressive in his dealing with the issue than Mr. Chalmers, the snake charmer. It's all illusion, But
I've been doing it when Phil Lowe was there.
That's why he's just here to help.
Been doing it since Phil Lowe was there.
Stephen, the long and the short of it is, if you're going to pick between the snake charmer and the chair and the head of the Reserve Bank, I know most people will go with the head of the Reserve Bank, and they will put the blame where it belongs, on the snake charmer, who gets up there and says, I've done a wonderful job. I've given you 2 surpluses, but I'm giving you 25 years' worth of deficits coming along afterwards. And we're counting in things that weren't counted in before.
Courtesy of your last government.
No nonsense.
Bronwyn
Courtesy
Bishop,
of COVID.
Peter Costello and John Howard want when they call for government to stop spending is they want the economy in a recession. So they can quickly flip to say we're in recession, it's Labor's fault.
To try and bag Howard and Costello and defend what we've got now
because they came
is a joke.
They came out. They were the ones who joined the debate. They want the country, like you do, Bronwyn, for the government to stop spending and the economy to go into recession. So you can attack Labor and say, see, you put us in recession.
I want the government to stop spending so that inflation comes down. Then we can have the reductions.
Then the economy goes into recession.
So when we are
talking coincidence.
All right. Well, when we are talking about government spending, let's talk about sport. Now, of course, Australians love their sport, all the rest of it, right? And it's a big industry, right? Today we learn $500 million over 10 years, soft diplomacy, Papua New Guinea. $775 million for the Tasmanian Stadium, and yet another debate about what stadium and how much should be in and around Brisbane for the Olympic Games. So rather than any of those three to get into, let's step back. Government money, taxpayer money and sport. Stephen, again, I understand why sporting organisations ask for it. I have no problem with an organisation asking for it because everyone asks for it. It's about what you allocate, right? And I'm sorry, again, I talk about priorities and I just think, and I know that you can do this with any area of government spending, but when you've got a scenario where literally the annual payments for one of these things is going to be higher than the entire ask of the food charity sectors when we've got our problems here, then it feels like a priority is wrong. But let's talk about Olympics. Let's talk about the Tassie Stadium as well. Is there a limit to what people will cop when it comes to their money and sport?
Now, Paul, I think you do know, but I do have a slight conflict of interest, which I have to declare before I have this conversation. I'm the chair of the Australian Professional Leagues, the A-League, so the men and the women.
So we can't spend enough.
While I... So we're not recipients of very much money from the federal or state governments, but I mean, you'd have to take your hat off to Gil McLachlan, the AFL. They have absolutely hoodwinked the Tasmanian government. They've put all risk on this venture onto the state and federal governments. And Peter V'landys, again, you got to take your hat off and do it.
We love Peter here.
Because he has, I know that, but he has absolutely taken the government to the cleaners on this one.
Do you think there's any political side to the footy team in Papua New Guinea? Look, do you think that, say, the left is going to go particularly nuts about it?
No, I think there's a general understanding that there's a very big game at play in the Pacific region where China are buying, bribing, cajoling, threatening a whole range of Pacific Island nations. Australia is their natural ally, and Australia has to use all of the weapons at its disposal to try and block, blunt and stave off China's attempts to buy, bribe, cajole their way into the region. It's in our national interest, it's in our national security interest, it's in our trade interest, it's in being able to get our goods on and offshore. We're an island. We need to be able to protect our trade routes. And Chinese bases, like they're talking about in the Solomon Islands, they've been suggesting that they might want to build one in Papua New Guinea.
So the soft power.
So these are the sorts of things you have to. The soft power arguments, I think, has more cogency than some of the criticism. So while I think Peter V'landys has absolutely mugged the government on this one because he gets to add another team in Perth and then he gets to have a bigger TV deal and the whole world's just frozy. Anytime there's crumbs off the table, they like to give football. Anytime they want to give you a few crumbs off the table to football is going to be a good day as far as I'm concerned.
All right, we're not letting you lobby via TV.
I'm sure I'm going to be helping soon in some conversation on that.
Yeah, he's just here to help. He's just here to help. All right. So, Bronwyn, just again,
here to help.
So we're seeing, say, in Queensland, right, the Olympics coming up 2032, there is a need for greater facilities. I personally think athletics in Carrara, you've already got a pretty good stadium there. Swimming can take place, as I think one of the plans may be, at the Old Lang Park, because as we saw in the French Games and in the LA Games, that stadiums are actually where the Olympic swimming's going to be. It's not sort of, you don't have to build a 30,000 seat venue for swimming. So there's ways around this. But the public can be sort of both sides on this, right? Which is, too much sport is never enough, as Roy Nash would say, which means too much money is never enough. And then once you start to see the numbers, and again, in and around that Tasmania situation in particular, it does rock some people.
Well, the Tasmanian situation, I think, is the worst of the three. With regard to Queensland, I think the world is seeing that that Olympic Games and other the Commonwealth Games can be done on a much smaller budget. But when it comes to Papua New Guinea, first went to Papua New Guinea in 1980. I formed good friendships there. I remained friends with Michael Somare for many years. I have an enormous regard for the people of Papua New Guinea. You can walk literally at low tide from a small island at the north of Cape York across to Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, wow.
People who are Torres Strait Islanders in Australia, their cousins are across the way. So it's a very close relationship.
So does the soft power thing make sense to
Yes,
you?
it does. It makes an enormous amount of sense to me because they love rugby league. They watch us. They watch our television. They send their kids to school here. They're very close to us. And yes, I do think. Now, whether or not 600 million was literally, as you said, he was taken to the cleaners.
I didn't say it.
But Andy's took the government to the cleaners. I think that's
Don't get me
probably
in
got some
trouble,
merit.
everyone.
But the long and the short of it is, I do think the soft power argument is important.
Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
a very important nation to us.